What have we said here from day one about Donald Trump? Everybody goes, oh, what's Donald Trump's management style? What have we said?
He's the last person in the room, leaves everyone guessing.
It's Donald Trump.
You have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow.
It's not all these other people. And this Time magazine cover that they put out last week, I mean, Donnie.
He runs the place.
You've done this. You've done this a lot. This is, why is it, like we know Trump.
Right.
Trump runs the White House.
Let me look.
Steve Bannon doesn't run the White House.
Let me tell you what this Time magazine cover says. Okay, first of all, I've known Trump 20 years. Nobody's bashed him more than I do. The one thing the guy is, to the point he's autocratic, he's a decision maker. This story is not about Trump.
He's in charge.
Yes, this story is not about Bannon being the puppeteer.
No, that's not what they're saying.
Listen, I've been around the press business. Steve Bannon is probably talking to the press and leaking more things than anybody in the history of war. He is a Steve Bannon promoter, not a Donald Trump.
A lot of these reporters are saying multiple sources say Bannon is in charge.
Listen to me. What Bannon is in charge of, obviously, is promoting Bannon. If I'm Donald Trump, okay, and I'm wondering where stuff is coming out of the White House, the fact that he ended up on the cover of Time magazine, that doesn't happen.
But Donnie,
like
you
a week and a half in.
You can trace the executive order and all sorts of things.
Okay, but I'm not
to things that Bannon was interested in.
I'm not saying he hasn't. Look. Trump's got to learn his way around. He could be signing paperwork that he doesn't know what he's signing. But at the end of the day, Steve Bannon, more than anything else, is in the business of promoting Steve Bannon. You don't end up on the cover of Time. If you think Donald Trump is the great promoter, I think we've got somebody to kind of actually match him in terms of managing the press, in terms of basically in the business, the carnival barking business.
You know this, the promotion business. You don't just accidentally end up on the cover of Time magazine.
No. I've worked with guys like this my entire life. I remember guys ending up who were ending up on the cover of Adweek, and I go, what happened? Oh no, they just go BS. Okay, so that's if I'm Trump, you'd be
pretty ripped. Willie, we know Donald.
I don't know.
Yeah. And we've known Donald for a long time. This doesn't just happen by accident. And again, what I find so fascinating is the press has been saying for months, Steve Bannon, he's behind it. Saturday Night Live said it. Time Magazine's saying it. And we've been saying no, it's Trump. It starts and it ends with Trump. I've had people coming up to me like in the press going, oh yeah, but you know, all this trade deal that Trump's doing now, that's all Steve Bannon. I said, Donald Trump was talking that way a decade ago. And they just don't want to listen to it because somebody in the White House just keeps leaking. It's all Bannon. It's all Bannon. It's not.
The Time magazine thing is one cover, and if you slip that past Donald Trump without approving with him, that's going to cost you.
Maybe
I'm surprised
Trump
it hasn't cost already.
Likes
it's
that he's got someone who pulls the
Mika, you know Donald Trump. Do you think it's likely that he said, yeah, put yourself on the cover of Time magazine?
And let me say, by the way, if the first week I were a member of Congress, my chief of staff were on the cover of Roll Call, I'd call my chief of staff in, Tim Carney, you're laughing, right?
Or if he wrote a book about himself.
And I'd say, listen, I don't really care, dude, if you're on the cover of The Hill or not. Like my first week I'm in Congress. But that don't just happen. Why don't you keep your head down and work for me instead of working for you?
And I think if you look at, I think Donnie is exactly right. If you look at what Bannon did that with Breitbart, and that wasn't just a website, that was part of a big media production. They helped turn Peter Schweizer's books, Clinton Cash, but also before that, before he was writing on the Clintons, helped turn those into bestsellers. He was tied in with print media. He was tied in with Fox. He was tied in with a lot of TV. People think, oh, Bannon, because he's this alt-right guy, as his critics put it, that he's out on the fringes. He's tied in with a lot of things, so he knows his job has to be a promoter. But as far as the question of how much has he been making the decisions or manipulating, I think the way to look at it is that Bannon saw the stuff that Trump was talking about, the protectionism, all that stuff, and he said, Donald, there's a philosophy behind what you're saying. It's populism, it's nationalism, it goes way back, it has a great pedigree in American history, and I can help you explain, I can explain to you the populism behind your ideas. I think that's why Bannon really does have have purchase on Donald Trump's mind is he's saying, Donald, no, you're really articulating a philosophy that goes way back in this country, and it's this nationalist populism. That's how to understand Bannon's influence.
And the other thing Donald Trump's not happy about, according to the New York Times reporting on Sunday, and people I've talked to as well, is this idea that Steve Bannon kind of put himself on the National Security Council Principals Committee without fully explaining to Donald Trump what that would mean exactly.
That can't
and
be true.
Obviously, Trump took a lot of blowback.
Trump must have known.
Now, you can't, that goes to Trump eventually. The buck stops with him. You got to know what you're signing.
Right.
But it's also the guy running your White House has to explain what that means.
That did not happen. I don't believe it.
People need to know their
It's
lane.
fantastical.
I just need to know.
They need to know the lane. By the way, another thing in that New York Times article said that Bannon decided that he was going to use the chaos inside of, he was going to rush into the void and the chaos to exploit the chaos and get his stuff through. That's another thing. I would call my person and go, hey, listen, if you see chaos here, you come talk to me and we'll organize it. Don't try to build your little kingdoms inside my White House.
It was basically, that cover was Donald Trump is this, and I'm this big. That's what that cover
This began.
And Saturday Night Live even picked up on it, where they had Bannon
it's the Grim
behind the
Reaper.
desk, and they had Donald Trump at a little desk, which is exactly what is the
Like a
story
mini.
that's being promoted.
This began.
It's outrageous.
This began when Bannon thought and won to be named in his press release announcing his job as not reporting to the White House Chief of Staff, in an unprecedented move in modern White House history. Everyone reports to the Chief of Staff, and
Everybody.
Yeah,
And
I am
Bannon
surprised
announced
at
as
how spread
reporting
out
directly to
Reince's
the president.
powers.
There's never been anything like it, and he has used that position. And the fact that Reince Priebus is not as driven by what Bannon's driven by, and therefore there's a huge vacuum, and he has stepped into it.
You know, the truth of the matter is, from everything everybody tells me in the White House, Reince Priebus, like Jared, want to run an efficient, organized White House that does what the president wants done, right? Have you seen Reince Priebus's picture? Let's look at that picture of Time magazine again. Is that Reince on the cover? Have you seen Reince Priebus's picture on the cover of Newsweek, our Time? Have you seen Jared's picture on the cover of Time?
I
haven't.
I think Reince was on the cover of Wisconsin
Jared.
magazine.
Yeah, exactly. And that's because they're keeping their head down and they're trying to run an efficient White House.
Yeah.
Reince wasn't pushing himself on the on any national security panels.
But he should be more alpha in that group, because that job it really does require that. By the way,
Donnie, that's
somebody
very
working for
interesting.
you, Joe.
It's interesting your take, Donnie.
Once again, and I've met this guy in business before. Forget that he's a dangerous guy, and
You don't think
he's
he
a
is.
white nationalist and all these horrible things.
Oh, you're talking about Bannon?
Yeah. Beyond that, he is the ultimate. More of a promoter than Trump. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think we could have ever topped this. But this guy, in a matter of time, went from anonymity to the guy who's running the world, and that doesn't happen on its own.
And being on the cover of Time magazine, as Donnie said, does not happen on its own. New York Times, we missed it because it was on the crease.
Well, there were so many
apparently,
different similar stories.
Steve Bannon, it's been leaked, is really big in the Vatican.
Oh, great.
They love him in the Vatican.
Who knew?
It reads it straight out of like
certain parts of the Vatican.
a Dan Brown novel.
Right. Could you explain the difference?
Right, but seriously, this guy has been
They're
an
not
aide.
Pope fans.
This guy's been an
they're
aide.
not Pope fans.
They don't love Pope Francis.
This guy has been an aide for 2 weeks to the president. And I've never seen press like it. And here, they even have him huge in the Vatican. Story not about Donald Trump in the Vatican. But Steve
But it's huge
Bannon.
part of the Vatican.
I know, but still, he's an aide. He's on the cover of Newsweek. They've got him on the front page.
Time magazine.
Time. I always say Newsweek of the New York Times.
He's powerful.
A story about him. Seriously, it's a Dan Brown novel. Well, you know, secret parts of
No,
the
he's
Vatican.
powerful, Joe.
He's so powerful that
No,
he's
he
like,
is.
seriously, the Da Vinci Code. It's the Bannon Code now.
Every story like
The
that on the
Bannon
front
way.
page of the cover magazine shortens his tenure in the White House.
no.
Is this,
He's really
have you
powerful.
ever seen anything like this before
no,
in
I
your life?
have not.
An aide to the president. Now they've got stories about him in the Vatican.
You have,
and in any other administration, someone who did all that would be fired by now.
This is outrageous. This is beyond outrageous, the press machine that has been churned up for this guy daily. And this actually does take it, Mika, to comedic new heights.
Steve's got to get a little bit more of a light touch, I would argue.
I would tell
don't go right to the Pope loves me.
He actually is powerful, Joe, because when he came from the media. He knows how to generate it.
Knows how to play the media.
Okay, and I would say that everything that he has stood for in the past is coming through in the policies that are being. So it's not a mirage. He actually is very powerful.
But you don't do that as a staff guy.
Well, internally, there is no match for him in the White House. Internally.
Well, apparently he must not. Maybe he thinks the president's not a match for him because he's getting more press than the president.
Cover of Time magazine, permanent seat on the National Security Council, and now he is twinned with Cardinal Raymond Burke, 68 years old, from St. Louis, who's the equivalent of the Tea Party in the Vatican.
And on top of that, according to Saturday Night Live, the president's now sitting at a small desk in the Oval Office, and Bannon's sitting at a big desk in the Oval Office.
It's unbelievable.
Well, that's just the symbolic.
None of us, and we have followed politics for a very long time, have ever seen anything like this before in our lives from a staff member. 2 weeks in, the amount of press. This is unprecedented.
Niall Stanage, your column for The Hill, asks, could Stephen Bannon be getting too big for the White House? And quoting just one line from your piece, I assume President Trump was not pleased with the Time cover because that is reserved for Donald Trump, said one White House source granted anonymity to speak candidly. What else did you find out, Niall?
I think one of the real issues here, Mika, is the fact that any staff member who gains this level of prominence, by its nature, diminishes the principal, Donald Trump in this case. And that's the problem for Steve Bannon. He had, of course, become close to Trump because they shared a sense that they were basically sneered at by the elites or looked down upon. They didn't get enough respect. But now the thing that unites them or united them could actually undercut Steve Bannon. If he is going out trying to, and we don't know this for sure, of course, but it would appear he's trying to bolster his own profile, then that always comes at the expense of the principal, in this case, as I say, Donald Trump. So that's obviously a problem.
Niall, we had been just talking around the table, and you heard this, we were talking about it yesterday too, and actually a story about Steve Bannon in the Vatican on the front page of the Times yesterday. It's almost a parody of the situation. But have you ever seen any staff member in any White House get this type of publicity, especially 2 weeks in?
No, there hasn't been anything remotely close to this, Joe. And we can all name aides. David Axelrod was very close aide, very important in President Obama's election victory in 2008. It would have been unthinkable for Axelrod to appear on the cover of Time 2 weeks into the Obama presidency. One of the comparisons that a source drew to me in reporting this piece, and I couldn't fit in the finished story, was the comparison with Karl Rove. Now, even Rove, I don't think, would have risen to these kind of levels. The source who was talking to me about that, though, was drawing the parallel of, as I say, the principle being diminished. So when people spoke about Karl Rove as being smart and cunning, George W. Bush suffered in comparison. I think we are seeing something similar
I think,
here.
and Willie, I guess you see a direct link between some of the things Bannon, was sort of connected with or wanted to do, and actual execution in the first 2 weeks. A riveting and wild first 2 weeks of a White House.
Yeah, and I think now for Donald Trump, there's this balance of loyalty to a guy he believes helped him become president, but also this ego question, as you just pointed out. You don't want to be seen as a marionette with someone else pulling the strings for you.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Willie. I mean, clearly Trump and Bannon are close because of the election, because I think Bannon had a sort of both a philosophical framework that he put around Trump's beliefs, and also a genuine understanding of the power of populism. So that makes them close. As I say, I think the idea that they are fighting against the elites is a very powerful glue that holds them together. But then you have this other side of it, which is the enormous publicity that
the
Bannon was
elites
getting.
obviously, Steve, like to at least write stories about Steve Bannon, because he is, I mean, every major media news outlet is writing a profile about how powerful and how important he is.
Because he is, and that's what the media should be doing. But if I were Bannon, I certainly wouldn't be cooperating. Look, Trump thinks that the cover of Time magazine is for Trump, not for Steve Bannon. It's a dangerous thing for someone.
I actually think most presidents would think that. From FDR to John Kennedy to you name it. I mean, I would love to have seen Nancy Reagan's response if somebody in the Reagan administration 2 weeks in was on the cover of Time magazine and getting all of this press. That would not.
That's Don Reagan.
That would not last.